Hello, and welcome back to the Breadwinner Podcast. I'm your host, Caroline, and this is the podcast show where we talk all things sourdough microbakery. We talk about building a business that serves our life, serves our household and our community, and leaves us energized and not burnt out. We may be exhausted at the end of the day sometimes, but we're excited to get going once we've had a rest. November was a month where I needed some rest. It was one of the craziest months ever. And today we are recapping November because it is the first episode of the month. So this is a month in review, and I want to walk you through November, and I'm going to ask the questions: what worked, what didn't, what did I learn, how am I moving forward, and then a quick look at December. I've been going through this month in review process for over a year now, and it has been such an excellent way for me to really intentionally look at what's working and what's not, and ask myself, what should I continue? What do I need to adjust? What are some processes that are not serving me? Products I could drop? Questions like that help me keep moving forward with intention rather than just rolling from one month into the next, which is so easy to do when we are running the type of business that we are. So if this is a practice that you want to implement too, I absolutely recommend it. It's as easy as sitting down with a pen and paper and asking yourself those questions: what worked, what didn't, how am I moving forward, and then looking forward at the following months. It works wonderfully as a monthly practice and then as a quarterly practice as well, to take a big look at the quarter and really make sure you're staying on track. I mentioned in the last month in review episode that I did make a journal, an actual physical paper journal that you can use for this practice as well. So the members who are joining the Breadwinner Network, which is my online network for microbakers, it's a very small network right now. There's not a lot of activity in there yet, but members who are joining are receiving a copy of the journal, and you can use it for your review practice. And we will jump into the Breadwinner Network online together and share what we're learning and our takeaways for our months in review. So there's a link to join the Breadwinner Network down in the show notes if you are interested in getting a copy of the journal, and if you want to join in and share your takeaways and what you've learned with the community as well. It'll be a really powerful way to continue to move forward with intention. Today, we're going to recap November. It is 4:43 a.m. on the day that this podcast episode is supposed to go live. Full real talk, life has been absolutely crazy, and I have been really struggling with getting episodes recorded on time. And so this one is coming a little bit last minute, and this is just real talk. So we are going to shape some sandwich loaves together. If you're watching on YouTube, you are right here in the bakery with me. You might hear a little bit of background noise because I am shaping sandwich loaves into tins so they can puff up before I pop them in the oven in about an hour. I'll try not to make too much of a racket. So let's jump into November. I shared in the last month in review episode that up until this point, I've been sharing a lot of revenue numbers. My context is different now. I'm working in a commercial space, and so I don't think revenue numbers are really going to be as helpful. So we're going to lean more into top products, trends I'm seeing, what's really working and what doesn't seem to be working, and then a lot of workflow questions and things like that. And then we're moving into conversations like hiring and building a team too. So in the month of November, massive transition, lots of lessons, lots of growth, some stress, some really great moments, and I'm excited to share. So this was the month that we've been waiting for so long, when I finally transitioned from the home bakery to the physical brick and mortar commercial space. I say finally because it feels like this has been a long time coming. I think I started talking about it on the show in February, but in the grand scheme of things, I have owned my business for just a little over 2 years, and this really does feel like it's happened quite quickly, unexpectedly. If you had asked me 1 year ago, early December of 2024, when I was going to be opening a brick and mortar, I would say it's probably a 3 to 4 year timeline. I saw it coming. I knew that it was the way that I wanted to serve the community, but I didn't see it coming so quickly. So that has been really crazy. And I'll be totally transparent. I don't hide things. I don't gatekeep. I have some imposter syndrome. I am a self-taught baker. I have not ever taken a baking class, and I have not been baking sourdough for that long. It's coming up on 3 years. Now, I have very diligently dedicated myself to learning and understanding the art and the crafts and not settling and continuing to grow my skills, but stretching and becoming exposed to just a lot wider audience and then growing in this way where I'm marketing myself and have to bring people into this, it feels sometimes, who am I to be doing this? But then on the flip side, no one else is doing it in my area, and it's a need. So we'll just start with that little encouragement. If you feel some imposter syndrome, if you feel like, who are you to be doing this thing? Maybe you have some opportunities that feel really scary and you don't feel like you're qualified. You don't feel like maybe you have the skills yet. Maybe just walk forward and see what happens. See what happens. Walk through the open doors. And if they close, then that's that. I personally approach life through a faith perspective, and I know a lot of my listeners do, but maybe not all of you. Take what serves you. But I believe that this bakery at this point is bigger than me and is something that God is going to use to serve the community, to serve fellow bakers in a really great way, in a huge way. And I am stewarding it. And I am the one who gets to be faithful. But I just need to walk forward in taking the next right step and running my business in a really wise way as well as I can. So here we go. A little tangent already off of the script. We'll get back on track and talk a little bit more about November. November 8th was my very last big bake day at home. So as you probably know, I do the local farmers market. It is 2 days a month. It's the second and fourth Saturday. And I've been selling there for over 2 years. Very consistently. It's where I have a lot of local customers. It's a place that I love. A lot of the vendors have become friends. And the plan is to continue selling there for as long as I can manage it well. But November 8th was my final day baking from my home bakery. And it was just a really nice market day. I sold out, I think, fairly early in the day. And just a lot of great community support, a lot of excitement with the coming of the bakery being about to open. So it felt like a really nice kind of transition, a way to close the chapter with a really successful final bake at home. So that was November 8th. And then November 10th, we moved everything out of the home bakery and into the commercial space. So my husband borrowed a trailer and we used the trailer and had a couple of big strong men come over and load up the fridges and freezer and tables and shelves and bins and all the things and brought them over here. And I will say it was really crazy to look at that trailer all loaded down with everything and realize that was all in the house. It was absolutely crazy. And then it just settled into the new baker space really nicely. If you're curious, I think I shared a little bakery tour on my Instagram, and I think I put in the highlights. If not, I will add that soon so that you can take a little peek. If you're watching on YouTube, the room that we're in right now is the prep room. So I have a huge 4-foot by 8-foot butcher block table that I got from a local restaurant auction. If you're looking for discounted equipment, check out restaurant auctions. They can be a little hit or miss, but I've gotten some shelving from there. I got a speed rack, and I got this table. It needed a lot of elbow grease, a lot of sanding down, but it's probably a $3,000 or $4,000 table, and I got it for a couple $100. So worth looking into. I've had people ask for the link of this table, and I can't find a super similar one, but check out restaurant auctions, and you might find a treasure. This is also the room where I have my mixers and my big, huge sink, and is where basically all of the wet and messy prep happens because it has tile floors, and the rest of the space has beautiful original wood floors because this building was actually a house built in the 1950s. So it has some of the quirks and a lot of the character of an old house, which I love. Okay, we're getting off track, so let's regroup a little bit. After moving day on November 10th, My oven was delivered on November 11th. It was a long wait. A lot of kind of puzzle pieces had to fall into place. But I finally received my oven on November 11th, and it sat outside for a day before my husband got off shift and could help me bring it inside. We bought a hydraulic lift from Home Depot. I highly recommend. It was like $200, and it allowed us to, we removed the stones from the oven to remove some weight, and together we were able to use moving straps to lift it up onto the lift and then just roll it inside and crank it up directly to the level of the stand and then just slide it on. And so it saved our backs and it was amazing. So with the oven in, I mixed up some dough to test. My schedule was a little funky that week, so the dough wasn't perfect. And also, one of the big things that I observed was that my starter really went through an adjustment period for about a part of it. I think was my timing, and I missed a feed here and there. It was off, but it was also adjusting to a new environment, new water, and I really believe that significantly had an impact. I do even notice that I think my bread tastes a little bit different still. I don't feel like it has quite as much of a sour flavor. So I need to keep on tweaking and see what I can change to get back to what I was consistently baking at home. It's not bad bread right now. It's just a little bit different. It doesn't have the really robust flavor that I really have developed and loved. So that learning curve of the new oven came into play with figuring out the steam, figuring out the temperature decks, and I'm still dialing that in. I'm getting really and have been pretty consistent, but that's just a learning curve. It's really normal when you're getting a new oven, especially a deck oven that you haven't used before. It's different from the way you've baked in the past. So the fine-tuning process is actually really fun. I'm just making notes as I go along, paying attention to which decks run warmer than the others. And because every single deck oven is different. Even if you had the same oven, your temperatures are going to run a little bit different than the next baker. So just part of the art and science. Is so fun. I'm getting a lot of questions about the oven, and I will say I really love it. I have only been baking for coming up on 3 weeks though, so I don't have a lot of bakes to go off of yet when I'm saying that I love it. But overall, my impression is it is built incredibly well. It feels like a tank, so solid. I'm so impressed with the construction of it and the evenness. I think I've said this probably a dozen times already, but it bakes so evenly. The browning is just absolutely gorgeous. In my home oven, I had hot corners and I had to rotate. I had to be really careful. If I went 2 minutes over on certain corners, they would get really dark. And I have not had that happen at all with the Sourdough, and I am thrilled. Okay, let's move on to some product highlights. So like I said, we're not going to go into revenue numbers per se, but talking about top products. So when I'm analyzing my top products, what I do is I go into both my Simply Bread app and my Square POS. I use Square for retail, so at the farmer's market, and then now here in the storefront, that is like my register that I input sales and then I receive some data on there. So I can see the number of products sold, and to whatever extent that I categorize them, I can see top products. For example, original sourdough is my top product. It's my top seller across both Simply Bread and Square, and that makes sense. I do see that in the warmer months, sandwich bread overtakes original, and then now when the weather cools down and we're in soup season, original sourdough is the winner. And it's followed closely by sandwich bread, and then seeded sandwich bread has been really popular in the bakery. So that is one of my additional top products right now. And with the seeded sandwich bread, I just get an organic 5-seed mix from Amazon, and I can add that to my storefront and put that down in the show notes if you want to see which seeds I use. But I just mix it directly into my sandwich dough. I fold it in when I'm doing my stretch and folds, and then I top the sandwich dough with the seeds as well, and it's a super popular product. Next top product was focaccia. I've just been doing olive oil and sea salt focaccia, and then Italian herb focaccia. In the month of November, I did a cinnamon sugar focaccia once, which was a hit. I'm really excited. Tomorrow I'm going to do a potato focaccia, which I have not done before, because as a home baker, we couldn't add vegetable toppings up until the change just a couple of months ago. So I'm really excited to be able to offer that because it's one of my favorite flavors, thinly sliced yellow potatoes on top of focaccia. Another top product was bread bowls, which is just my original sourdough bread, which I shake into 300-gram balls and sell them in packs of 3. And then, of course, the Thanksgiving products skewed the product data a little bit. So we're going to talk more about Thanksgiving in a second. The next product was scones. It always surprises me how popular scones are because they're not generally like my favorite products to eat or to bake, but people love them. So fig and candied walnut was the flavor that I put on my Thanksgiving menu, so I sold a lot of those. And then cranberry orange is a flavor that I get requested a lot, and I do a lot of cranberry flavors in the wintertime. So I sold a lot of cranberry orange scones in November. And then the other flavor that I did was an Earl Grey lavender, which I love, and anyone who tries it, they love. I do find that Earl Grey and lavender tend to be a flavor that people aren't really sure about. So until they try it, often they're a little bit iffy and don't know if they'll actually like it. The one other flavor that I tried in November was my first foray into a savory scone. I did a jalapeno cheddar, which I was very unsure about. I am not a jalapeno lover, but people love my jalapeno bread, and so I wanted to give a savory scone a try. So I just mixed my regular jalapenos that I used in my bread and cheddar cheese. And I psyched myself up to try it. Like I said, I don't like jalapenos, but these scones were so good. I should end up eating 3. So I haven't had a lot of customer feedback on those yet, but I'm hoping to hear from people and see what they think. I'm trying a couple of savory scones this week here in early December, so I'll report back next month to let you know how those go. Muffins were another big thing. I sold a lot of coffee cake muffins, and then I did a couple of cranberry orange muffins as well, and those were popular. And then finally, cookies. I just always have chocolate chip cookies on the menu. That's just a consistent product that I always offer, and people know where to find it. On my pre-order menu, I offer cookies as a baker's dozen, so 13. And usually I'll offer a half dozen on my pre-order menu as well. And then in the bakery, people can come in and buy any quantity. And so that's been fun. That's something new that I can do from the commercial space, is just let people choose the quantity of products that they want. They can get 1 cookie, they can get 3. Same with like muffins and scones and other sweet treats. It's fun to be able to put together a little box, a bakery box with their mix of products that they choose just from my case. I've been really enjoying that part. So I will be moving into December. My menu is going to be heavier on cookies and a lot of sweet treats, cinnamon rolls, things like that, and really leaning on gift sets. I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit. But as I think about the menu, my product mix will be a little bit different. I'll still have a lot of the staple breads, but really lean into the smaller pieces that can be put into like a party tray or a gift box. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Thanksgiving. So this was my first year baking out of the commercial space, and I opened up pre-orders about a week and a half before Thanksgiving. If I had not had such a crazy month, I would have opened those up just a little bit sooner, giving myself a little more runway, but it worked out just fine. And I've learned through a lot of trial and error that the more strategic and the smaller my holiday menus are, the more manageable. So for Thanksgiving, I did a little bit more product than I offered last year, but I offered dinner rolls in packs of 9, cinnamon rolls in packs of 4, original sourdough bread, sandwich bread, because I love a good turkey sandwich with those leftovers, and a pack of scones. So I was able to prep the cookies ahead of time, the scones ahead of time. Oh, and stuffing mix, and that was another prep ahead. The rest I was able to bake day of, and I prepped the dough the preceding 2 days. So pickups were on Wednesday for Thursday Thanksgiving, and I began my dough on Monday. So I mixed up all of the bread dough, all of the brioche dough for the dinner rolls and the cinnamon rolls, and I used the same dough for those. And I had already the previous week mixed up the scones and the cookies and the stuffing mix, so I didn't have to worry about those in the week of Thanksgiving. I marketed through my text list, and then I put a couple posts up on social media, and it went crazy. I sold out my dinner rolls so quickly. I offered 50 packs at first, And then those were going too quickly. So I got brave and I added another 20 and I sold all 70 packs and had people asking for more and bummed out that they missed. So I just gave them a gracious response. I let them know that I would have a handful of extras on pickup day on Wednesday. That would be first come, first serve. And I couldn't take reservations for those, but I did have a handful of people drop in and buy up all of the extras that I was able to make. I believe that probably the hype of the pre-orders from Thanksgiving will build for the pre-orders for Christmas, and I'll have a very similar menu. I'll do some dinner rolls and some plain bread and probably a scone or a muffin and cinnamon rolls. Things that went really well for Thanksgiving were really clear pickup time frames. When I'm here in the bakery, I don't always require them to select a time frame for their pickup. They can just come within the open hours. However, for Thanksgiving, I did require that they select their 15-minute window when they place their order in the Simply Bread app. And that allowed me to pace myself and not be so stressed about getting all 50 orders packaged before the doors opened at 10. But I could focus on those 10 a.m. orders, get those all bagged up and labeled. And then as people were picking those up, I could bag up the 11 and the 12 and do that in waves. So I started my bake day really early. I was pulling things out of the oven until about noon, but I was able to manage everything really well and got everything to the people in time. Everyone picked up. I did have one last person who was 30 minutes late, which is not ideal, which prompted me to change my pickup window moving forward to end 30 minutes before my retail hours close here at the bakery. So my typical hours are 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I decided this week for my pre-orders to close the pickup window at 1:30 so that if I do have those stragglers who are coming in closer to 2, then I'm not sitting here waiting for an additional 30 minutes when I want to be closing. So like I mentioned, one thing I could have done a little bit better for Thanksgiving was plan ahead just a little bit further and give people a little bit more time to plan around my menu. I think the 10 days was enough time, especially for people who just knew that they were going to order from me. But for Christmas, I'll open my pre-order menu probably about 5 days earlier. So about 2 weeks before pickups rather than 10 days. One thing that I'm glad I did was offer the stuffing mix. It's a dry product. It has a long shelf life. And it's just an easy add-on. It's easy to prep the week ahead because it will stay fresh because it's just dry. And I just include some really simple instructions and people love to add that on. It makes me think about how I can offer additional like mixes, pantry staples, dry products that have a longer shelf life. So this week for my pre-orders, I played around with adding granola on as a pre-order item. It's usually something that I have just on my shelf here and I have on my market table, but I've never actually put it on my pre-order menu. And so I was interested and pleased to see that a handful of people did add it on. And so I'm excited too. That probably means that some people are going to get to try it who haven't had it yet. And I really love my granola and I want it to be something that I become known for. So Thanksgiving overall felt really good. I didn't have the frantic moments that I've had in previous holidays. And part of that was I had an assistant help me with rolling the dinner rolls on Tuesday. So we did 828 dinner rolls. I rolled them and he cut and weighed them. And between the two of us, it took us, I think, about 3 hours to do all 800 some rolls. And that went a lot better than it would have if I had been alone. So having support was huge. He also came in early on Wednesday morning and helped me get things packaged. As things cooled, we were able to bag them up and get organized for pre-orders. And then he took off and I was able to manage the rest of the day pretty well. So support for those crazy days is huge. If you're on the fence on whether or not to bring in some help, I really do recommend it, especially in the holiday season. Next week's episode is going to be an interview with my previous assistant, Melissa. And we talk a lot about just all the questions that you might ask about hiring. And so that's going to be a really good one if you're unsure, if you want some help to get through Christmas time. Okay, let's start to wind down a little bit. Let's talk about what didn't work. So there were a couple of things. The main thing that I feel as I look back on December that didn't work as well was the second market. This was the first one where I was trying to do both things, be both at the bakery and at the booth. So my husband and my kids worked my booth and they did great. It was wonderful. And then I was here in the bakery. The main thing that I should have done differently, and it's one of those things that you don't really know until you experience it, was my product split. I wasn't sure how much to send to the market and how much to keep at the bakery. So I split it about 50-50. In retrospect, I definitely should have done more like a 70-30 split with a lot more going to the market because that's where people know me and that's where they have been coming to find me for the last 2+ years. So they sold out really quickly over at the market. And then I was left with a fair amount of unsold product here at the bakery because people are still figuring out where I am and that they can come to me here too. So I did give my husband a whole bunch of little flyers to hand out to people to say we're open and here's a little 10% discount when you come into the store. And I haven't had a lot of people redeem those yet, but I expect it to just be a slow, steady build as people start to realize that they can come here too and maybe don't have to fight the lines at the market as much as we're adjusting. So for the next market, I will weigh more heavily toward product at the booth rather than here at the bakery until we gain more traction here. Just part of the learning curve. This is a really interesting learning curve, figuring out how much product to bake just in general. Like today is a Thursday. I'm going to be open from 7 to 2. And aside from a small amount of pre-orders, I have no idea how much to bake today. So I'm leaning on the lower side. If I sell out, beautiful, wonderful. If I will bring product to the food bank, but I'd like to not have to lean on that option too heavily and find a good balance of baking the right amount. And I just expect that to take time to figure it out. And I'm sure it will just be a constant kind of learning curve over the next year or so as I figure out what people are looking for, what days are busier, and I'm excited, but I'm curious, and it definitely feels very uncertain right now in terms of how much to bake. So right now we're looking at 24 loaves of sandwich bread, and today I've only 3 of these pre-sold, and I think I will only bake a total of 12 because it's a Thursday, and I just don't know how many people are going to come in. So I can always pop more in the oven if I need to later, but I will leave the rest in the fridge and bake them off tomorrow and err on the side of not over baking. The other thing that I would say maybe didn't work as well was my soft opening. What the Saturday before that market week, I had a lot of pre-orders and then I just had a lot of people coming in and it was wonderful. It was such an energizing day. The local support was incredible. I was open from 9 to 2. And in that time, there was not a single time without someone in the shop, which was just incredible. I was beyond thankful. However, I was solo. I didn't have anyone helping me, and I did not give myself enough time to bake. I should have started my day at least an hour earlier. It was just chaotic. I joke that I'm like a duck. I handle pressure outwardly really well. When I'm stressed, I don't look ruffled. I look calm and serene. But like a duck, I'm just paddling like mad underneath. And that's how that day felt. So in retrospect, busy days like that, I need help. I needed someone to be at the register so I could be pulling things out of the oven. And I also needed to start my day earlier. There's this balance of I could start my day at 2:30 in the morning. And I knew that like for Thanksgiving, for example, if I had started my day at 2, I could have had pretty much everything fully baked before pickup started. However, I just was not willing to start at 2. So I started at about 3 and I was pulling things out of the oven for a little while for the later wave of pickups while that early group was picking up. And that worked because I knew how it was spread out and that I did have a group of people picking up later in the day and would have time to get that all cooled. And because it was mostly pre-orders, they were bagged and labeled and I wasn't ringing up purchases at the same time. But that soft opening was crazy because I was at the register trying to package up their orders and ring them up while timers were going off. And that just was a lot. And probably not the greatest first impression for people coming in and seeing me just like a chicken with my head cut off. So moving forward, I have been giving myself a little bit more time on bake days, starting my days a little bit earlier, really working on quality sleep leading up to that, being in bed between 8 and 9 and doing what I can to make sure that my sleep is really restful. And then storing up on sleep on those days that are not early. So Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays are my really early mornings. And then the rest of the week, I have a fairly regular sleep schedule. And so I just try to maximize the quality of my sleep across the board, but especially on those days when I'm not waking up in the 3 o'clock hour. Okay, as we wind down, let's talk about what worked well, but a quick summary. So the local support's been incredible. Between walk-ins, I've actually had a surprising number of people just come in because they saw a Facebook post or even found me on Google or ChatGPT, which was shocking. And only just in the last couple of days, my Google listing was approved. So I didn't have organic traffic coming in from there. So that will be interesting this week now that I am on Google Maps to see if people come in from there. But the community response has been beautiful and so exciting. Thanksgiving pre-orders were a huge success. I have brought on an assistant. So he started November 19th. So it's been about 2.5 weeks. And we're starting to build expectations, rhythms, figuring out what I can delegate little by little. He's done a lot of dishes, a lot of like pre-measuring dry ingredients, scooping muffins, things like that. Yesterday, I showed him my crackers process. So little by little, just giving additional tasks. But that's been really helpful to have an additional set of hands, and he comes in mornings 2 to 3 days a week. So we'll continue refining. I need to begin recording processes. This is something I've talked about a lot and talk about in next week's episode about hiring, because it's not something I've been great at, and it's definitely something I need to implement early on in the team building process so that future onboarding is smoother as well. And then the other thing that's working is just knowing some of the clear product favorites, knowing product that will do really well. Things like bread bowls are really popular this time of year. And then just experimenting a little bit here and there with new flavors is really fun. So looking ahead to December, this month I am just going all in as much as possible. I have huge revenue goals because I have a lot of expenses now. And this is a month where we can anticipate a lot of opportunity. It's a shopping type of month. People are looking for gifts to give. They're hosting parties. There are just so many opportunities. So I want to position myself to maximize those as much as possible. So I'm leaning into a lot of gift bundles, boxes of a curated selection of breads and treats, multiple packs of scones and muffins, and just seasonal assortments. So I will position those both for gifting and then for hosting as well. And I'll be putting those on my website. And those should be going up today because I need to get those up ASAP. Leaning into cozy seasonal flavors in December. So I have a caramelized onion, like a French onion scone in the works. I caramelized my onions yesterday. I've been doing a lot of like cozy spiced flavors. I have a mulled cider snickerdoodle cookie that's cold fermenting. I'm going to bake a test off today and try not to overcomplicate. So I'm using a lot of my base recipes that I already know they work well, not bringing in a lot of new recipes, but changing up the flavor combination. So that's been really fun. This month is going to be heavy on local marketing, mostly through not paid marketing, but posting in all the local Facebook groups. I'm going to try out the Nextdoor app. I'm a member of our local Chamber of Commerce, so I'll utilize them because they're great at sharing their members' posts, trying to get in front of more people, trying to let people know where to find me and how to get products from me for gifting and hosting. Another gift option that I'll be offering are gift cards, both for bakery and for workshops. So those are easy stocking stuffer gifts and things that make a great last minute gift too. And then just continually growing pre-orders intentionally. So people are adjusting, and this is just an interesting learning curve. I have been opening pre-orders for all 3 days that I'm open, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I do like that I know I have some orders to fulfill, so it won't be just completely quiet. And it helps me know how to spread out my bakes and plan ahead. I've been adding like one different sweet package product each day. So, for example, today is muffins, tomorrow is a scone, and the next day will be English muffins and a flavored specialty bread. So, just communicating, sending text to my list every week still, and showing up a lot more on social media than I had been before opening. So, entering December with some really clear goals, some data to help me move forward, and starting to understand where the demand is and really leaning into the known opportunities. So, gifting, hosting, things like that. So, November overall was not a perfect month, but it was a huge transition month. A lot to learn, a lot of movement, a lot to optimize and hone in on. And I'm really excited as I move forward, but we'll be using just takeaways from November to help dictate the way I move through December, and then January will be slower. So figuring out how to build a lot of momentum in December to carry me through January and stockpile a little bit of cash in bank for January through the revenue generated in December. So hopefully this is encouraging to you if you're in a transition season, or just regardless of where you are. If you are looking at December pre-orders, know that you can pace yourself. You can rein in your menu and offer a lot fewer options, control your pickup windows. And if you're in a changing season, know that there's a learning curve and it can take several weeks to months to really find your groove. And that's normal. And just use the data and use what's working and what's not to help you move forward with a plan and with intention. I'm excited already to come back and review December with you. But until then, next week, like I talked about, will be about hiring an assistant. And we'll talk more later in December about looking forward to 2026 and setting the tone and the intentions for the coming year. So that'll be a fun one too. In the meantime, happy baking. Get some rest, have fun, and I'll be back soon with a new episode. But until then, happy baking.